Good morning. There's a lot of you. That makes me happy. There's about 55% of you more than last year, apparently. 45%. Fab. Okay, how are we? I want to talk about what it means to be a developer. So, anyone who thinks they're a front-end developer, stand up. Anyone who thinks they're a front-end developer? Right. No, you're not. Sit down. Anyone who thinks they're a back-end developer, stand up. Stand up, back-end developers. No, you're not. Sit down. That's all I've got. No, okay. I should probably go beyond that. So, okay, let's start at the beginning then. So, in the beginning, we had the old world. This is, does anyone recognize this? I'll be surprised if anyone recognize this? So, this was the first code ever written. It's 1844. This is all the code in the whole world. This is called Note G. So this is Ada Lovelace, who's the daughter of Lord Byron. Lord Byron was a British poet and drug addict, and true stories, opium fiend. And his wife was determined that their daughter was not going to grow up to be a poet and opium fiend, and so she got her an education. And she learnt science and mathematics and all these kind of things. And we know her as Ada Lovelace, who's Countess Lovelace. And she was quite a smart lady. And she spoke several languages fluently. And there's a chap, Charles Babbage, and Charles Babbage was explaining to people about his analytical engine that he'd designed that could do computations. And there was a young Italian guy in the audience who went on to become the Prime Minister of Italy. But he was making notes in French because he was just showing off, right? And he makes his notes in French about things you could do with the analytical engine. And Charles Babbage didn't speak French, so he asks Ada, he says, would you mind translating these notes into English so I can use them? Because they're really, it's nice to have notes from it's like sketch notes. Someone makes a sketch note of your talk and you want to see it. So she did, and while she's translating it, she notices, she makes some notes, and this is Note G. One of the observations she made was that you could instruct the analytical engine to do things. So it wasn't just, it would set it up and it would do calculations. You could program it. So she invented programming, and this was the first program. This is how to calculate Bernoulli numbers on the analytical engine. And so this is 1844. This is all the programmers in the world. Okay? So this tells me two things about all the programmers. Firstly, all the programmers in the world were women. Okay? And secondly, they really knew how to dress. Right? So us lot in our jeans and t-shirts and whatever else. And that is how you dress as a programmer. Okay? So this is 19th century. So time passes. Okay. Does anyone recognize this? This lovely screen. Any hands? What is it? The Hobbit. It's The Hobbit. It's a 1980s text-based adventure game called The Hobbit. It's one of my favorite games ever. And you type in things like Go North and Open Box. And then you meet Thorin, and Thorin follows you. And you can say, wait, and then you wait and time passes. And if Thorin's with you, he waits as well, which is nice. He doesn't just wander off and leave you. Thorin waits. So anyway, 100 years later, stuff's got real, okay? This is the Second World War. This is programmers, and they are hacking on a mainframe, on a Colossus Mark II, and they are literally hacking. Because what these ladies are doing is they are trying to crack the Lorentz cipher, which is the system behind the Enigma encryption machine from the Second World War. And this helped defeat the Nazis, and it was all very cool. And again, all the programmers are women. Okay? So, necessities of other invention. According to Wikipedia, one of them is Dorothy Dubuisson, and the other is Elsie Booker. So there we go. And then, this is probably one of my computing heroes. This is Admiral Grace Hopper. She's quite a remarkable lady. So essentially, she invented the compiler, and she invented the compiler because she needed one. Okay, she's like, well, doing software by hand has taken ages. I'm going to invent the compiler. And there was a wonderful interview with her on like the Letterman show or something. And he's saying, so you were like a computer expert then, weren't you? And she said, no, there weren't computer experts because we were just inventing it. I was just someone in a hurry, right? And so, so a lot of these great ideas aren't kind of, people with big beards and decades of experience. They're like, I've got a problem to solve. On a much, much smaller scale, I can tell you the stories behind continuous delivery from my ThoughtWorks days. And again, we weren't sitting there going, oh, let's invent continuous delivery. We were just in a really, really crappy environment and trying to automate our way out of it. So she also invents a thing called the nanosecond. This is gorgeous. So she's trying to explain to other admirals in the US Navy that you can't have instantaneous communication with ships at sea. And they're like, well, we've got telephone, and telephone seems pretty instantaneous. And she says, no, light takes time to get from where we are to where the ships are. And so what she used to do, she phoned down to the machine room and she said, can you just run me off a bunch of lengths of cable, wire, about yay long. And so she used to walk around with these around her neck. And so she'd be in a meeting and say, here, have a nanosecond. And she'd hand out these I said, what do you mean have a nanosecond? And she said, this is how far light travels in a nanosecond, right? So now what you do is from where we are, from where your phone is, we're going to measure how many nanoseconds it is up to the ionosphere and how many nanoseconds it is back to the ship, right? And then how many nanoseconds back again. That's the shortest possible time you can get a message. And they went, oh, because we love visualizations. Yeah, so we invent things. And now what happens is, and this tends to happen with most innovation, is it starts in the military, then it goes into academia, and then it ends up in business. So the internet, the thing that we all run on now, started as a US defense project called the ARPANET, at DARPA, the US Defense Agency for Research. And then it went into academia as JANET, the Joint Academic Network, and then we got it as the internet. Okay, so this is in the 1960s now, so programming is now simple enough that even men can do it. So here's a couple of guys, and they're debugging, which is great because they're actually pair programming. I like that. So it's the 1960s and they're pair programming. So this is our world, right? And there's commandments in this world. And they say things like, you shall have a business requirements document, okay? You shall have a functional specification. You shall program in the manner of the specification. You shall have no other specification before me. Analysts shall analyze, architects shall architect, programmers shall program, testers shall test. We're not done, there's more, right? There's more commandments. You shall complete a formal change request. You can't just go around changing stuff, right? There's a formal change request process. You shall provide release documentation. You shall not release to production yourself, lest you incur the wrath of the release manager. Okay? You shall not hack on that which is in production. It's more of a guideline, really. But this was the world we lived in. And so we had very sort of vertical silos of people in very specific roles. And the reason we do that is we're trying to be efficient. Okay, and I was just listening to the previous talk, was wonderful. I was just thinking, how do I follow that? It's a really, really lovely, inspiring message. And he said, we started off with everyone doing everything, and then we've fallen into this kind of gated, staged process. So we have like some product engineers, some product people over here do some product stuff, and UX people do some UX stuff, and then some engineers get involved. And we do that because we're trying to be efficient. And when we're all working together in a team, it feels inefficient because some of us are sitting around not contributing right now. But the thing is, when you have that slack in the team, your background hamsters, your system 2, to use a technical term, is busy innovating, it's busy having ideas, it's busy assimilating loads of information, but it doesn't feel like work. So we go, I need to keep busy because I'm expensive and I'm earning I hope you're expensive, I'm expensive and I'm earning my keep. So we specialize into roles. And here's the thing, that doesn't really work so well. So then we have the new world. The new world starts in the 90s, we're all kind of struggling with this. And a bunch of folks got together and they came up with a thing called the Agile Manifesto. Has anyone in the room not come across the Agile Manifesto? Fab, that I can skip a bit, right? So, Agile Manifesto, this is a chap called Bob Martin, invites all of his friends who are independently trying to solve this problem. So they're all working in big, heavy organizations with big, heavy, slow software, and they're all saying, do you know what? We don't think it needs to be like this. If you get small groups of people and give them full autonomy, they can get work done. And each of them kind of came up with different flavors of this. So there was Scrum, there was XP, there was DSDM, there was Adaptive, there was Crystal, there was feature-driven. There's a whole bunch of these different little methods that all popped up. And so Bob said, well, rather than all you fragmenting, let's all get together and create an umbrella term that captures what we all mean. And so they have this Agile Manifesto. And it says it's a really clever document. And I think as a document, it's really stood the test of time. Because it doesn't say, we are good, that is bad. Because a really good way to not make friends is to say, we are good, that is bad. Okay? Because then whoever's over here being classified as bad goes, no, that's not right. What they said instead was, that is good, this is better. And they went, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that because you said I was good. So should I be cross? Right? So everything on the right here is good. Okay? It wouldn't even be on the page if it wasn't good. We need processes and tools. We need documentation. We need contracts, right? Those are the mechanisms by which we get work done. However, that's what we were obsessing about, and they said, why don't we not obsess about that and think about different things? So individuals and interactions, human beings, and how they work together, systems of humans doing work, is a more interesting thing to look at than the processes and tools they use, and so on. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that the role changes. That means that the rules change. And I love the opening two talks kind of set this up. So thanks, chaps, that's brilliant. Because I want to look beyond developer, okay? So let me tell you about me, right? I'm a developer, okay? And I'm in a team, right? And I'm working on a product, probably, and that's on a platform, okay? And that's in a department. I'm working in a department in an organization, okay? So I'm working in Wix. So that's me. I'm a developer here, but this isn't about me. It's about you. Okay, you are all of these things. So what I want to do is spend a bit of time unpacking what all of this means, because immediately you all just became much more interesting. You're these multi-dimensional creatures now, and I want to unpack what some of those dimensions look like. So okay, so you're a developer. What does it mean to be a developer? Well, clearly the first thing it means is you need to learn the language. Okay, you can't be a developer without knowing the language you're programming in. That, I would argue, once you've learned a couple of languages, is trivially easy. Okay, that's not the hard part of programming. Then you need to learn the libraries. You need to learn the ecosystem that language lives in. So anyone who's moved from Java to C#, you say C# is basically a better Java on a crappier platform. Right? Is kind of what it feels like with a rubbish collections API. Yeah, but some of the other things it does are super clever. Yeah, and Java, 10, 9, 10, 11 are just catching up with things that the C# folks have had for like a decade, which is both embarrassing and fills me with hope. Right? So you learn the libraries, you understand how the thing works. But then you've got to kind of understand what else is going on out there. You've got to look outside of your bubble and see what other things are out there. Days since last JavaScript framework, 7.8.0. Oh. Right? So there's lots and lots of stuff going on. It's interesting, you can really tell someone's personality type by the way they respond to this. So some people go, oh, JavaScript is mayhem and NPM doesn't make any sense and there's too much change going on, you guys can't possibly make any sense of this. And then other people are going, this is a Cambrian explosion and it's super exciting, and so on, right? And so what it means when things are changing that rapidly is we need to make some choices. And we need to decide the things that we want to stabilize on and the things that we don't mind iterating on. So we're going to need to monitor what else is going out there in the world. It's not enough to know the language and its libraries and be able to code in it. It's understanding the tool chain, understanding what the tools are that are out there, the 17 different build systems, right, that I could use, and then being opinionated and deciding which ones we are going to use, and understanding the trade-offs we're making when we make those choices. And really importantly is engaging with the community. I love that we're talking about Wix's meetups and how popular the meetups are. That's one part of it, but there's a broader part of it as well, which is the community around the technology you're using. So how do you engage with that community? Don't underestimate who you are. You are Wix, okay? As Wix, as representatives, everyone in this room is a representative of Wix. That gives you a surprisingly loud voice. Gives you a surprising amount of leverage. If you say, we as a significant global platform are interested in helping you progress X, then whoever's behind X is going to go, this is really cool. Right? Wow, you know. And I've seen this happen with other large organizations, is it's really easy to forget how significant this organization is and how impactful it is, because we come into work and we write stuff, and yeah, people, and I love that letter at the end, right? That's what we're really doing. We're really enabling a housewife with 2 kids to build a business. That's really what we're doing. It looks like we're coding, but we're not. We're really helping that woman. So engaging with the community around the tools and the languages we use, but engaging with the local community that are using that as well. Okay, so that's me as a developer. I'm working in a team. What does that mean? Well, it means a bunch of things. The first thing it means is I need to understand how we do work, right? How we get work done, what it means to do work in this team. If I've just arrived in the team, I need to learn how we do things around here. From the other side, if someone has just arrived in your team, make them feel welcome. Make them feel super welcome and excited to be in your team and onboard them. And yeah, so there was one place I worked. 2 weeks before I started, I got a phone call. And they said, what kind of laptop do you want? It's like, it's an odd question. Normally I just get the crappy laptop that's being handed down by the person I'm going to go and join or whatever. What kind of laptop? I said, what kind have you got? And they said, anything you like. Wait, anything I like? Yeah, anything you like. I'm not sure what to do with it. So anyway, we had a good chat about what other people were using and those kind of things. And I ended up specking out this really pimped out kind of Linux box. It was this was before I became a Apple fanboy, and I was a Linux fanboy. I still am, really. So I had this really pimped out Linux Lenovo laptop, and it was gorgeous. And so I turn up on my first day, and this gleaming laptop is sitting on my desk, next to a gleaming workstation, which had more memory than I thought you could get in a workstation, and my twin 30-inch monitors. Okay? So that's where I'm going to be working. I'm like, wow, these people are taking me seriously. I should take me seriously. Right? I've never had a setup like this. Do you know how much more it costs to give someone twin 30-inch monitors and a state-of-the-art workstation than a regular laptop or regular desktop machine? Probably change out of $500, right? Certainly change out of $1,000, and that's a one-off cost, right? The impact that has on that person's sense of being welcomed and also on that person's effectiveness, ability to do work is staggering. But usually in a large organization, the people who own the budget around the kit are separate from the people doing the work on the kit. Okay, and so these folks are incentivized to drive the cost down, and these folks are kind of, oh, okay, like this. You sound like a much more grown-up organization than that, right? But understanding the process, understanding what it is you're coming into. Understand who's who in the team and what roles happen in the team. Now, roles are not job titles. This is really important. Roles can move around. We might have a role that is availability. You know, we were saying like reliability is a big deal. Quality is a big deal. We might have a role that says, is this software of sufficient quality? And that role might currently be carried out by a tech lead in the team, right? That doesn't mean that that person is the only person who does that, or that person will always do that, but it's you now understand that we take quality seriously. We take testability seriously. We take availability seriously. We take whatever the things are we take seriously. I learn what those values are. And I learn what those roles are, and I might want to try some of those roles on, okay? And I can only do that once I understand them. You need to collaborate with people, okay? Even if you're an amazing developer, if you sit there with your headphones on all day, you're an amazing 1x developer. If you are an amazing developer and you are going around working with other people, you just became a 10x developer. I was on a team once with a chap called Tim McKinnon, who's one of my favorite programmers. And he was about to be fired from the team. And the reason was there was a project manager somewhere who was measuring individual story points. So how many story points individuals were, and Tim was signing up for nothing. And so his throughput was nothing, and so he was obviously the low-hanging fruit, and we should sack him. Until I pointed out that what Tim did was he used to rotate around the team, pair with everyone, and was moving the whole team forward. And the team would basically be a lot less effective without Tim. And I had to fight for Tim's job, because people don't understand the power of collaboration. You need to collaborate with others, and I mean all the others. Okay? So we have an entire spectrum of geeks in this room. We have geeks who like to nerd out about usability and user experience and what it's like for a housewife to lay out an event website for their friend. Okay? We have geeks who nerd out about how packets travel through a network and how setting up VLANs and changing traffic shaping can affect the flow of packets through a data center. And we need that whole spectrum of geeks, right? What it means, though, is wherever you are on that spectrum, to interact with the other people. Even if you are a integration nerd and you really love getting all these systems to talk to each other, you need to understand what's going on the outside. And likewise, if you love interacting with the users and all those kind of people, and that's where your world is, you need to understand what's going on in the machine room. Okay? Because that means you can make better decisions, you can be more effective. So collaborate with all the others. And it's not just about you, okay? So if I've got a team of 6 people and each person is looking out for themselves, everyone has one person looking out for them. If I have a team of 6 people and they're all looking out for each other, everyone in the team has 5 people looking out for them. Just do the math, okay? So understand where the team is. If the team feels like it's struggling, it's probably struggling, right? If you feel like you're struggling, put your hand up. I'm struggling. Right? If you feel like you're struggling and you can't put your hand up, that's signal. Right? That's not good. Find someone somewhere else that you can talk to. But that team health thing, that sustainability thing is really important. Okay, so we're a developer and a team. Building a product. Okay. So we're not just writing code. What is the business objective of the thing we're building? And we said, I saw earlier on, we've got like guilds of capabilities that go across ways, and then we've got vertical products and all those kind of things. What's the point of your product? Yeah, I can look, most of my examples are from finance and banking, because that's where I spend most of my time. You can look at yourself in finance as moving data from system A and munging it a bit and shoving it in system B, or you can look at it as enabling a housewife in Germany to take money out of an ATM, right, and feed her family. Yeah? There's different ways of looking at the same scenario. What is the point of what you're building? And every day, use that as a test against your work. Am I doing something that moves this product forward, or am I not? If I am, I should do it more. If I'm not, I should stop and I should do something else. Understand what it is you're building. So the most effective trading teams I've seen have engineers who learn trading. In fact, one of the engineers then went on to become a qualified trader and is now running the trading floor as a former programmer. In fact, not a former programmer, because he still cuts code. Yeah. So understand, study the domain. So what is it that makes Wix, whee, just better than WordPress? Boo, right? What is it? And I can tell you, as someone who's had his website on WordPress forever, boo. But it doesn't really do much. It doesn't look very nice. It's a bit, you know. What is it? What is the value proposition? What are we bringing to the world, right? Understanding the stakeholders. Who's involved here, right? Who's involved in the work we do? My favorite definition of stakeholder, a chap called Mark McNeil, who's a UX specialist. His definition of stakeholder is people whose lives you touch, okay? People whose lives you touch. We do work with computers. We touch people's lives. Obviously, we touch end users' lives, right? Those are people whose lives we touch. But there's a bunch of other people whose lives we touch as well. We've got product people. We've got regulatory people. GDPR, woo, right? I've just been unsubscribed from more lists that I didn't know I was on than at any time in my life. And I love the irony of someone saying, "Dear Dan, we value your privacy. We value your privacy so much that we didn't do anything about it until until 24 hours before we were legally obliged to. Love, list you didn't know you were on. Click unsubscribe." I'm not going to click unsubscribe. I'm not going to tell you I received this. No, junk. Right? And then there's about 3 products that go, "We value your privacy, so we didn't have to do anything because we were already compliant." And I'm like, that's what I want. Right? So So yeah, understand the stakeholders. Compliance, operations, okay? We build software that people support. Now, depending on your ecology, depending on your culture, you may build systems that you support yourselves. In a lot of organizations, you have engineering and then you have operations and support functions. Those people downstream from your code, they are stakeholders. They are first-class users, okay? A log, a system log, a debug log, is a first-class user interface. It's a first-class read-only, append-only user interface. But think about the use case for this. The only time I ever need to look at a log file is when something is going wrong, when I'm under time pressure, when all eyes are on me, and it's probably 4 in the morning, right? I probably just got my kid to sleep at 3 in the morning, yeah? And I just get this alert, and now I've got to go and try and figure out what's going on with this thing. Okay? If you're looking at your own logging through those eyes, lordy, does that make a difference? Right? What's the difference between logging a warning and logging an error? What would you say? What's your criteria for logging a warning versus logging an error? Sorry? Right, that's excellent. Have a bonus point. So the difference is, people go, well, whether it's recoverable, whether it's fatal. No, it's much more human than that. You log an error if you wouldn't mind being woken up at 3 in the morning with that message. That's when it's an error. Otherwise, it's a warning. Error, toner low. That's not an error. That's irritating, okay? So think about, when you're writing systems, think about who are the consumers of that software going to be, what impact are you going to have? There's a chap called Bill Buxton, who's a UX researcher at Microsoft. He has my favorite definition of user experience. User experience, he says, is this. It's the experience a user has. Oh, that's profound. Right? What does that mean? User experience is not the shape of the widgets or whether the corners are rounded or the gradient fills or the fonts, or that's design, right? That's user interface design. User experience is the experience a user has when they interact with the stuff we built. That experience could be joy, it could be frustration, it could be despair, it could be the worst one of all, uncertainty. Did you take my credit card details? If I click again, am I paying twice? Do I have the thing for this? Right? So I know I've used Wix a couple of times, and when I use Wix, it makes me smile. Okay? There's some user feedback. It makes me smile. It's obvious. I can find my way around it. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Yeah? When I use WordPress, boo. Right? It's frustrating. I have domains hosted. So my domain, I have some DNS hosting at WordPress because they do blah. And every time I have to go in and change it, I can't remember where it is. Every time. Right? Because it's not obvious. It's not laid out well. Right? It's not good. They design it like engineers. They don't design it like empathic human beings. Okay? Maybe I'm being mean. Maybe it's improved. I don't know. But understand all your stakeholders. Okay? And not just the ones you think of, all the stakeholders. So we've got, with our users, we've got casual users, we've got power users, right? Do we have different routes to success for them? We've got administrators of sites, we've got site builders, we've got people who build sites for other people. There's a whole secondary market there. That's pretty cool, right? What's the user experience like for those people? You're not programmers, okay? You're consultants. So when someone comes to you and says, I want you to deliver me this, and this little laundry list of features, there's two options. One is to go, okay, then I shall go and deliver you this list of features. Another is to say, in order to what? What's the need we're trying to meet here? What can't you currently do that you'd like to be able to do? Right? And then we engage as consultants and we talk about how we might find a route to success that might not be obvious. So the analogy I've been using recently is surgery. Right? I go to a surgeon and I say, look, it hurts when I do this. And they say, oh, that doesn't sound good. And then we do some tests, and then off the back of those tests, the surgeon says, well, you've got these options. And they explain the options to me in plain language. There might be some technical stuff in there, but they'll explain the technical stuff, and then they work with me to make a decision that we both make. So they're the expert, but I'm the customer, right? And that relationship, that's what all of you need to become. Not just to, say, product people, but to each other as well. Let's go and solve it in this way. In order to what? What's the goal here? Let's unpack this a little bit. So think of yourselves as advisors, consultants, mentors to one another. And also you're going to contribute to the product, okay? So anyone here who's building this who isn't using it, go do your homework, right? Go build sites. Go have some fun with it, right? Go build systems build new products on the platform for those people doing the platform engineering piece, right? Go and have some fun with it. So, you're on a platform. And you guys, this is really relevant for you because we're moving in that way. But on a platform in this context means this. It means you're not just building software in isolation, okay? There's an ecosystem here. So you need to understand your own technical landscape. What facilities do we have? What capabilities do we have? What APIs do we have? What things can I lean on? What things do we not have that my team has noticed we don't have and maybe some other people could use as well? So maybe we solve it for us and then we share it. You know, we contribute it back. So understand the platform that you're building on and understand the technical landscape you're working in. That takes time. Right? There's lots and lots and lots of pieces to the Wix ecosystem, to the Wix technology landscape. And obviously you won't learn all of those overnight. You'll start with the ones you're working on. You'll gradually navigate your way through them as you develop your career here. But there's a really fine balance between leaning on stuff that exists and not invented here. You know, we're going to build our own thing over here. And making that trade-off, you can only make an informed trade-off if you know what the options are, if you know what else is out there. So that's about learning the technical landscape. The flip side, people who are responsible for the technical landscape, so for you the platform is your product, how easy is it for people to discover that? How discoverable is it? How well documented is it? How learnable is it? Because if you've built this amazing all singing, all dancing platform and I can't find it, you've given no value at all. Oh no, right? So is it discoverable? Are there tutorials? Is there a 2-minute tutorial and a 10-minute tutorial? And are there little videos for people who like videos? And are there documents for people who hate videos? Right? So what are the different ways I can engage with your platform as a customer? And it's not enough, again, to just build software. What's my path to live? I was seeing some wonderful statistics about how insanely fast you folks are pushing things out to production. Epic, right? You've only just started, right? Oh, you've only just started, yeah? It gets a lot more fun. Right, believe me, as someone who was there in the early days of manual stuff becoming automated stuff becoming commodity stuff, it's a really, really exciting time to be alive in terms of path to live. Yeah? So understand your path to production, understand, again, where it can help you, where you need to jump through hoops. Don't think of the path to live as a technical pipe. That's the easy bit. Think of path to live as a series of assurances. Okay, so as I move further and further towards customer facing, there's certain kinds of confidence I need, certain kinds of assurance I need, and we want to build that assurance, build that confidence. Now, some people have that by having multiple environments, and you have a UAT environment and a production, a staging environment, a performance environment, and I see that as an anti-pattern. I'm a little bit unpopular, a little bit countercultural opinion, but I see having multiple stages like that as an anti-pattern. Because what you're really doing is you're replacing assurance with a stage, right? If I could build software in such a way that I get those assurances for free, I don't need any of those stages, okay? And this is where we get into things like self-certifying or self-evidencing systems. So I'm working again in banks in very heavily regulated environments. And getting stuff into production in a bank is a very, very typically time-consuming process with loads of meetings and handoffs. And so, no, we didn't do that. We started building a platform where if you use these languages, these tools, this platform, this path to live, you get a self-evidencing process. So I need to be able to demonstrate which features are in this release. Well, that's easy because I've got Git and I've got the commit log, and the commit log has hash 26 for Jira ticket 26 or whatever. So I can trawl the Git log and I can see all the things that are in this release, and I can map that back to Jira. I can pull this is all automatable. So what did we do? We automated it. So now what happens is, as a build artifact, you get the Word document with template already populated and said, here's your release doc. No one has to sit there and type all that in. The compliance folks want to know that X, Y, and Z are true. And so what do? Well, we make them be true. And then we evidence that as part of the build. Suddenly all these things, and what we don't do is we don't say you don't have to have that meeting anymore. Still have all your process, but we're going to make all this automated. And so then what happens is, over several releases, we have the meeting and they go, you're the team that's already got the document, aren't you? Yes. Yes, we are. You're the team that already did that? Yes. Yes, we did. Oh, okay. So what do we do? We all just sit here for an hour or what? I'm not sure what to do here. And so the meetings start getting shorter and shorter, and then they cancel them. And when your compliance people cancel the compliance sign-off meeting, you're winning, right? Self-evidencing path to life. So understand this wonderful value, you can do value stream mapping, which is a lovely exercise to just model your path to life. From I've got something I want to put live to there is a customer now using it, okay? What are all of the stages involved in that? And which of those are vestigial? Which of those do we just do because we do? You know, process scar tissue. Which of those things are necessary but we could automate? Which of those things are necessary and we could bundle in together? How can I reduce that lead time? Okay, understand our path to live. It's not enough to get it live. You've got to keep it running. We were talking about resilience and availability and all those things. Really, really important. Okay. Again, operability should be a first-class construct. Adrian Cockcroft, former head of stuff at Netflix, used to say, he said, we built this incredible monitoring and alerting platform that as a side effect can stream video. Right? That's how seriously they take this stuff. It starts with observability. It starts with monitoring. It starts with heart beating. And then you start adding behavior to it. Right? If you build your platform with that mindset, then things become a lot more sane. We need to automate things. Okay? We need to make things to not have to think about them. There's tools over rules is one of my favorite values. So rather than having policy and rules and things that everyone has to follow, automate it. Rather than having a code style guide, put it in the IDE. So as I'm coding, it's already the style guide. Yeah, I'm already getting warnings in there that I'm breaking rules or whatever it is. Automate those things. Don't automate all the things. It's really easy to make automation the goal, to make automation the god, and just to obsess about that automation thing. Automation is a tool. It's a trade-off, right? So what am I trading off? When I automate something, I'm making it faster, making it repeatable. I'm also locking it in. I'm eliminating any variability in it. So if it's something that has uncertainty, that needs to vary, that needs to flex, it's probably not a candidate for automation yet. So this is me now. Me 10 years ago was saying the opposite. So I've been on a bit of a journey myself, okay? So automation, try and step back from, oh, look, we should automate everything because we can. There's one team I was coaching at ThoughtWorks, and they spent, I got called in by the client because the client was unhappy because we weren't making progress. And I was like, this sounds unusual. They're a really good team, and I went in to see the team. They're 6 weeks in. They said, oh, Dan, because I wrote this pipeline paper a bunch of years ago. So they said, oh, Dan, you're the build pipeline guy. Come and see this build pipeline we've built. I was like, okay. And they showed me this build pipeline. It's a thing of beauty, right? It's fully automated. It has a dashboard. It has instrumentation. It has all this reports that it produces. I said, brilliant. This is great. What's been through it? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, what have you put through the pipeline? Oh, nothing. We've been building it. I said, okay, right. So now I'm going to describe back the last 6 weeks from your customer's perspective. Week 1, got nothing. Week 2, got nothing. Week 3, got nothing. Week 4, got nothing. Starting to worry. Week 5, got nothing. Got an invoice from ThoughtWorks. Week 6, phoned Dan. Right? They're getting 0 value from this, yeah, because we've automated all the things. Instead, automate as you need. When you're first building something, build it manually because that's how you'll learn what you can automate. And only once it becomes boring, that's then when it becomes a candidate for automation. Okay. And again, you're contributing back. As you do things, most of Amazon's internal platforms have been built by people inside Amazon wanting to get work done and saying, well, this could be easier if we just did blah. And so that then becomes part of the Amazon ecosystem. There's Roy, who's going to be speaking later, used to head up a tools team at Netflix, which is where I met him. And This tools team, one of my favorite, and I may be getting this wrong, but he'll correct me, he'll throw things. But the tools team, the internal rule at Netflix was that no one had to use the tools. We've got this team that builds tools, no one has to use them. Right? So that meant there was two things that were their guiding principles in this tools team. One is only bother building stuff that we need. If there's already an open source version, go get it. Right? So only bother solving the problems we have. And two is solve them really well. Right? Because if we don't, they'll go and solve them themselves. And we're just sitting here making stuff. Yeah? And so it really, really focuses the mind. Okay? So they're contributing back to the platform. So think about what it is we're building, how we're building it. You know, a lot of engineers in this room are primary customers of the Wix platform. Right? You are the best possible people to give feedback, to shape this thing as it's still in its kind of nascent form, which is a really exciting time to be alive. Your own department, what does that mean? That means you need to start understanding the wider context, okay? You need to start navigating the organization. You need to understand when something that might be good for the team might be damaging to the wider ecosystem. So we get all these local, and again, so Bezos' email said, use whatever technology you like. If people had taken that by the letter, you'd have had 200 teams doing 200 different things. That's crazy. It's crazy to be downstream from that because you've got this massive fragmentation of technologies. So they didn't do that. They had opinions. They said, these are the technologies we should use for the low latency, high performance stuff. These are the technologies we should use for the things that are iterating really quickly that we want to sketch with. These are the technologies we should use for large scale storage and so on. These are some patterns we'll use for sending messages. This is how we'll define protocols and APIs. And they made that normal. They normalized that across the organization. What that means is now I can genuinely be autonomous. As a team, I can know not just what's good for my team, but what's good for the wider organization, which is kind of exciting. It's not enough, again, to be even a 6x developer within your team by sharing your stuff in the team. You can become a 60x or a 600x developer by sharing your knowledge across all the teams. And this is how we grow as an organization. It's no fluke that Netflix is as insanely talented as it is, that Amazon are as insanely talented, Facebook. You folks, right? I keep meeting smart people. It makes me very happy. Again, I'm going to quote Cockcroft because I like to, because he's got some great quotes. He was saying about, like, you know, he's got all these engineers and they're doing really amazing things. And he's at a conference, and someone at the front row of the conference said, "Excuse me, Mr. Cockcroft." He said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, it's easy for you to say this because you've got all the best engineers." And, you know, and he looks at his badge, he looks at his, like, conference badge, and the company he's from. And he looks all across the front row, and they're all from, like, banks and insurance and whatever else. And he goes, "We got them from you. Right? We hired them from you. Right? You had all these people, we just let them free." And they're, oh crap, right? So it's about creating an environment in which, so Goldman Sachs, the bank, they famously, when they bring people into the organization, they talk about impact and influence. And so impact is what you can do as an individual contributor, as an IC. So impact is you building software, you testing systems, you designing. Okay? Influence is what you cause other people to do, what you enable other people to do. So early in your career, it's all about impact, and then as you move on through the organization, it shifts. So now mostly you're influencing and you're causing good work to be done. So as you grow in the organization, you increase your network, you figure out how to navigate the organization, the shift is much more towards influence. Okay? So you're going to share your knowledge across the teams, all your knowledge. Right? It's amazing how often, and this happens a lot, and I'm sure it happens a lot here and you don't know, which is why I want to tell you, because then you'll become aware of it, how often a team solves a local problem using some really cool little innovative thing, and then that's it. It doesn't occur to them, it's so obvious to them in the moment that it doesn't occur to them to tell other people what they did. Right? And yet that thing is insanely powerful. Right? So it's often the obvious things that are the most powerful things. So I saw there's a couple of talks later on, I was talking to a chap earlier on, who's talking about a way he's been testing UI components. And I'm like, I'm delighted by the fact that he's going to be talking about how he's testing UI components, because what he's figured out is how to get work done. And that's one team getting work done. If he shares it with you, that's 40 teams getting work done. brilliant, right? That's influence, okay? So yeah. And again, you're going to contribute to the department. What does it mean to be? So the fact that we have front end and back end, and that makes me slightly nervous, right? I guess because they're guilds, it makes me slightly less nervous. But we become tribal. As human beings, we become tribal. So it's where your tribal allegiance is. Is my tribal allegiance to the people around me where I'm building a product with them? Or is my tribal allegiance to my guild of other people like me? And it's about creating the right balance with that. So I want to contribute to the department, and I want to influence across the organization. Okay? And again, this is me becoming a rounded human being. And then finally, we're in an organization, right? We're in Wix. Do you project the organization's values? Do you know Wix's values? Do you know what Wix stands for? Does Wix know what Wix stands for? Is this a standard? Is there a statement about this, right? One of the tests that I use is this. Would you proudly wear a t-shirt with your company's name on it? I suspect most of the people in this room, the answer is yes, right? That makes me very happy. There are certainly some organizations I work with in the UK where they're like, no, I turn up and I get paid and I go home and I'm looking for a job and it's no. Or you're working for a bank and you're proudly wearing the bank's t-shirt and then suddenly the following week they're in the news because some really, really dodgy thing and you go, I just won't wear that t-shirt for a while. Okay, so are your values aligned? And when they say if you can't change your employer, change your employer, right? So I ended up, a couple of times I've left jobs in my career where for a long time we were aligned and then that happened. And that happened and it meant that can I influence the things I want to influence anymore? Not really. So okay, it's time for me to move on. So are you aligned with the values of the organization you're working in? Do you project those values? Do you care about the reputation of the organization? And do you share your knowledge externally? I love, again, that you have this meetup culture, which is brilliant. I love that you are the most popular company to apply to in Israel. That's really cool. How about becoming the most popular company to apply to in the world? That'd be awesome. Right? Let's go after that, because why not? Right? So sharing your knowledge externally, not all your knowledge. Be aware that there is IP, be aware that there are secret source, right? So at least check in with people before you are going to go and say, and here's something they're doing. Oh, crap, really shouldn't have done that. Okay, so just a little cautionary note there. But yeah, to the extent you possibly can, share your toys. Right? You know, Google has so much open source, but the thing you always bear in the back of your mind whenever Google open sources something is this is 3 generations old. This is the thing they used to do before the last thing they used to do, and they've just open sourced it. Everyone's going, oh, this is the way forward, and they're going, shh. Right? It's still pretty good stuff. But so, for instance, if you're building a large distributed build system on Bazel, you should maybe look at Buck, which is where Bazel went next, or at least where Bazel went when Simon Stewart started building stuff at Facebook. But we can talk about that. So not all your knowledge. And again, you contribute to the organization, right? So this is the care and feeding stuff. Are you involved in recruiting? Are you involved in onboarding? Are you involved in career development? Are you involved in coaching people? Are you involved in mentoring? Okay, because this is all part of that piece. Right? So yeah, you are beyond developer. There's a lovely proverb I want to finish with. It's an African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Okay? I have an addition to that, which is if you want to go far quickly, pack light. Okay. Thanks very much.